start recording. Folks know that we're doing that. I'm going to share my screen briefly and go through a few slides with you, but this one is going to be a conversation, more freeform, so it will not be PowerPoint Central today, but I will share really briefly so a couple slides with you guys all. So thank you for joining us for the COVIDeo series today. We're excited about today's topic. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I turn this over to Amaha. So again, video if you can, especially this one's going to be a convo. So you know, Amaha's hoping for participation. It'd be great to see your face, to know who we're talking to. If you can't, we understand. Mute if you're not talking. It really helps. So again, we're expecting like 40 people in the room. This call is being recorded, so keep that in mind with anything you say or share, as it will be publicly shared. For check-ins, we did the roll call of food co-ops in our room. That's all we really have time for because there's so many of us here. And again, we usually say the topic's very focused. We're going to stay on our topic for today, but today's topic is pretty far-reaching. So this might be less of a thing today. And you guys know where to find us if you need more support. Our speaker today is Amaha Sellassie. He's the board chair at Gem City Market. He's also the director of the Center of Applied Social Issues. And he's with us here today to share his session called Collective Hope. And so hopefully you saw the bullet points ahead of time about some of the things that will be touched on. It's gonna be a little free form. I'm very excited about all this. But we're just gonna turn over to Amaha. Keep in mind a couple things, which is because there's about 40 of us in the room, please put your comments and thoughts in the chat, or let me know that you'd like to speak in the chat, and we're gonna see how that works. I'm gonna try and I'll be kind of like helping Amaha keep aware that some people would like to participate. I think Amaha, would like people maybe to unmute and actually talk to you rather than just have
we can do both. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah.
So some of both is very welcome throughout this session. And with that said, I am going to unshare this so we can see all of your lovely faces, and I'm going to turn over to Amaha.
Hey, greetings, everybody. It's an honor to be here today. Yeah, I'm super excited. And kind of like Jacqueline said, the format will probably not be the same as before because I'm super random. So we're going to just go with the flow. But yeah, I've been really like struck at how co-ops can enter the space that is being created right now out of this chaos and out of this tragic moment, right? Like, you know, like you talk about how pressure builds diamonds, right? And so like how can co-ops participate in the reimagining of what our communities can be in the future? Like what is the community we want to, you know, work, live, and play in? And how do we, in this moment, like seize that time to like really build the communities that we want to see, you know, and like, or prepare the foundation. So part of that is through this notion of collective hope, right? Which kind of a brief definition of that would be how communities develop a shared vision of the community they want to live in and how we leverage our resources towards making that happen, right? And the reason I see co-ops fill a unique role inside this is that we're about cooperation. So like inside of itself is about co-creating a vision, co-creating spaces where people are coming together and leveraging their resources towards building the co-op. So then it's like, how do we position the co-op to then look at like, what is that community and how do co-ops become that space where people are coming and gathering and seeing themselves as part of something bigger than the market, right? So like we say that it's not a market, but a movement, right? Because we want to say that like the market is situated inside of a larger ecosystem, right? Towards a larger community transformation, you know? And so, so I think like right now it's an ideal time to really explore, because I think at the root and where co-ops fit in the most is that I think the notion of independence is being challenged, right? This notion of survival of the fittest, this notion that, you know, what I do affects me only and not others, right? All these things are being challenged by the virus and brought out, right? And to show that like we truly are interdependent underneath all of this, right? And so how do we then start building our structures and systems and society around that basic assumption. Because what we do right now is that we build off of the assumption of independence, not even thinking like, oh, independence, then taking the next step, because we don't even question it. Like we build everything off of this notion of independence. So I'm a sociologist, so I get a little nerdy sometimes. So like structure is ideology plus resources, meaning that I have a basic idea, and then I see how can I leverage my resources, right? My time, talents, money, gifts, towards making that idea a reality, right? So at the heart of co-ops, right, is that like to have a co-op, some of the basic assumptions is interdependence, and or the single garment of destiny, like Martin Luther King talks about it, like that, you know, Ubuntu, what affects one affects all. And so how can co-ops in this hour kind of be that watering hole to build greater collaboration inside the community, right? We have all these nonprofits, we have these different agencies doing great work, right? So how can co-ops kind of serve as like a flagship, you know, or some kind of like inside the ecosystem, they can be like that watering hole where people are building these deeper relationships amongst each other that we can then harness the gifts and talents of the community, you know? So, yeah. So I think it comes by just like truly, so what we're doing right now at Gem City Market is, you know, we're hosting a popular education series, right? So part of that is, so we want to give our platform, so we have about 2,500 members right now, something like that. But we want to open up our platform to the gifts and talents of our community. If you have something you want to share, share it. So like right now, we got one tomorrow about how to access the small business funding that just got released, right? We got a lawyer that's going to come on, talk about how to access that funding. We got one next week about the census. You know, we got one the week after that about community gardens and just gardening in general. So like we want to, in this hour, we want to shift to how we can walk with the community, that the community, that we have a shared identity with the community, that the community sees that we are actually, you know, we're birthed from the community and we are community ourselves, and we're going to walk together through this crisis, you know? So, you know, we're calling our members. We've been phone banking for, this is our second week now that we have a phone bank that we're calling our members to check in, see how they're doing, connecting them to resources, right? And so it's like the whole thing of like how we can, in this hour, work together, you know what I mean, in the midst of this crisis, you know what I mean? That like people see the market as a place to get food, right? But also that like it's a shared space that we are creating towards meeting the needs of the community and moving together. And I think that's an important shift, because right now it's like, you know, if we're entering a new paradigm, right, then like, how do we hold that space in the midst of this pause? Because if we don't jump into space, somebody else will, you know what I mean? So why not jump in and like really show what we can be? Like that cooperation really is an answer, you know what I mean? That like, we're stronger together, like all these things that we kind of intrinsically know, right? But like how to actualize it and really step into that space. And so that's where the notion of collective impact comes in, which is like, you know, if we create a space where different co-ops and different agencies are working together towards, you know, building health equity or working together towards community transformation, knowing that each of them have a different core competency, right? So it's like how to build greater levels of cooperation and collaboration by building the trust, right? Which is key to all this, right? How you build deeper levels of trust and relationships, and to really build out an ecosystem that's able to meet its needs. Let's see. So yeah, so I think it's like how to harness the power of now, ultimately, right? The fierce urgency of now, right? And how can co-ops serve the community in this hour? You know, like what is our value? You know what I mean? As a co-op, you know what I mean? So I mentioned, I grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars, but And I was more of a Star Wars fan, keeping it real. But lately, I've been looking more at Star Trek and this notion of Starfleet, right? And like how like it was like how all these different worlds and galaxies of different people could have this level of inclusion and this sense of belonging inside this larger thing, right? So like, how can co-ops fill this role in this hour, right? A place where people, regardless of gender, race, class, age, sexual orientation, right, can all have this space where they have a sense of belonging, right? They're building dignity, right? Building respect, right? Learning how to work together, live together, play together, right? And what kind of role can co-ops fill within that? You know what I mean? And some of us have stores that are actually up, some don't. You know, I meant to say this in the beginning, I forgot that we actually poured our foundation last week, you know what I mean, which is a huge milestone. Yeah, it turned up, you know what I mean? I'm thankful for the collective work that has got us to this point, you know? So, any thoughts, questions, comments? I probably talked too much already, so.
Man, I'll just say, hey, Amaha and
everyone. What up?
That's just so inspiring, I think, the work that you're doing. And I think it is just such a good reminder, you know, for us, especially in the startup place, because, I mean, you guys are further along than we are in Sola, but I mean, you know, I'm always keeping my vision on what we said is like, okay, to open up this full service grocery store to our community, and then having, you know, this COVID-19 thing happen, you know, kind of just makes you feel like, okay, you're already selling the intangible for now, right? You know, and how do you kind of keep people engaged and interested? And so I just find this so inspiring and so appreciate your energy and the good ideas that you shared.
Good, thanks. You know, yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that Sola has been doing, you know what I mean? And I think it's like what are our core competencies, you know? And like, how do we live into this moment? You know what I mean? Like this moment is here, you know what I mean? So like, how do we navigate this moment, right? Towards, you know, making lemonades out of lemons, you know what I mean? So, and so I think it's like, we have members right now, you know? And so it's like how to build a deeper shared identity amongst our members, right? So we're even doing something here in Dayton, like, let's see, how am I gonna put this? Okay, so language is the key to transformation, right? Like if we're trying to reimagine a new space, oftentimes language is the first thing that we change, right? So a good example would be a lot of people that are working inside of food deserts don't call them food deserts anymore, but we call it food apartheid, right? And part of that is because, you know, deserts are not natural, right? And when we call food apartheid, we're acknowledging the structural mechanisms, which is a way to build collective hope. Because if I know that it's man-made, then I know I can reimagine it because it was an imagination to begin with, right? And so that gives us power and agency, like the ability that we can act on our environment, you know what I mean? So right now, in Dayton, we're shifting our language away from saying community to saying village. And the reason we're making that switch is because when we say community, we already have all these assumptions of what it is. You know what I mean? But no, let's explore what a village is. You know what I mean? Like, what does it mean to live inside of a village? You know what I mean? Like, what does it mean to live inside that type of ecosystem, right? And so it's almost the same thing, but just shifting the language opens up new possibilities of what we can be together. You know what I mean? And so it's like in this hour, I think it's like, how do we truly live out our ideals, and what kind of tools can we use to help us in this reimagining process, right? Like creating the new myths for now, you know?
I love the idea of calling your owners during this time. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really strong statement. So, yeah, what you're Mary Meyer with the in Chicago. I'm
greeting, Mary.
Chicago. Yeah, I attended your workshop at Startup on hiring a GM.
I remember your face.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is that we invite because every organization in our community is kind of in their own little world, so to speak.
Right.
And we don't think that way at the co-op, but how to break out of that. So one idea I hear is invite them perhaps to present at one of our virtual events.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So like in asset-based community development, right? It's like, how do you leverage the gifts and talents of the community, right? Like there's latent capacity in our community right now. Like I'm a firm believer that we have all that we need inside of our region, you know what I mean? But it's the lack of relationship, the lack of the willingness to cooperate and collaborate, all these things, you know, that keeps our capacity underneath our potential that we have right now, not waiting for something new, right? And so I think by as being the co-op and like inviting others to share their gifts with the community, we're acknowledging that they have these gifts, right? That they have these core competencies. We're not trying to compete, right? That we want to lift up these gifts and talents, right? And then that invites them to walk with us on this journey. Like there's this metaphor of, it's called the magic canoe. And there's this canoe that sets off on the river, and there's one person on it. And as they float down the river, like they see people on the side, and the canoe keeps expanding as more people come, you're right? And so like we're walking together, you know what I mean? We're making the road by walking it, right? So how can we in this hour serve as that, you know, the holder of that space, you know what I mean? Like to try to hold this shared vision of the community we want to see together. And so, yeah, I think it's the key. And also within that, how to be the invitation, right? And what I mean by that is, it's easy for me to be an armchair quarterback and sit at home and be like, you know what? When these people and you people over here, right? When you get it together and when you do this, this, and this, we're going to have a better world, right? But the opposite is, how am I showing up in these spaces, right? How am I living into the vision that I want to see, right? Am I treating people the way that I want to see in the world, you know? And by that, you be the invitation, because you're literally manifesting it, right? Or you're in the process of manifesting it, right? And then in that process, you invite others to join you on that journey. You know, it's like this notion of the thermostat versus thermometer, you know, because the thermometer reads the temperature in the room. It's 50 degrees, it's 60 degrees, it's 70 degrees, you know, but the thermostat controls the temperature in the room. You know what I mean? So if I ask the thermometer, hey, I want it at 68, it's gonna be, that's nice. You know what I mean? It ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I mean? But I talk to the thermostat, and it's like, bam, you know, let me just move it up there, right? And so when we're the invitation, we're actually controlling the power in our neighborhood. We're controlling the narratives, right? That are creating and we're operating from. And that's why I feel co-ops have the power, right? Because we already have members, you know what I mean? And we're already developing the shared vision, you know what I mean? So how do we keep it going and adding other people's gifts and talents and ideas, you know what I mean? And just co-creating of what we can be together.
Kim had a question for you. I'm gonna let her, do you wanna unmute Kim and share that?
Hey, how are you? This is great. So I do have a question about this village community. So making sure that I understand how you're distinguishing it. So, you know, this change in vocabulary. Okay. And then also how it's being received. And if you're getting that buy-in, like what do you think are the triggers that get people to begin using this new language of village instead of community? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I think those are great questions. And I think we're in the process right now of that. Like literally, like we started doing it about like 4 or 5 days ago, you know what I mean? So to me, I think it's like when we say community, everybody has these ideas in their head of what it is, you know what I mean? And, you know, if you've been in this work for a long time, then like you may see community and almost kind of gloss over like, okay, I already got this idea of what it is, this, that, and other, you know? But when you throw out a new word, it makes us question, what is it? What is a village? You know what I mean? And like, and to your question, what is the difference between village and community? Is there even a difference between village and community? You know what I mean? But throwing out a new word, it helps us to reimagine something different. You know what I mean? And so it helps us like go through that process. And we might even end up at the same place, but using a different word can kind of have us, you know, act in a space and co-create what community is even, you know what I mean? So it's like, so right now, we created and this wasn't necessarily from the market, but the market, you know, we do a lot of organizing work in Dayton, so it all kind of meshes together, you know. But you know, my big brother Marlon, so we created this elders council, or like we're creating this village concept in Dayton, and so he made a Facebook profile that says I am part of the village, right? And so now we're getting people to switch their profile to that, saying, you know, I am part of the village, or we're gonna make another one that says we are the village, right? And so it's this thing of like, how do we create this thing that like, yeah, we're all in this together right now, you know what I mean?
Let me just ask then. So when I think of, so let me just like put this in context. So I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, so I get the organizing thing, right? Because we come from union areas. But I also went to school at Berkeley, where I was a member of a co-op back in the 80s. So I get the co-op thing. But if someone told me village versus community, I'm thinking village as a geographic thing, and community being broader, that anybody can come into and be and build community.
Right.
And so that's why I was asking, because I feel like our co-op is in will be in 3 different jurisdictions.
Okay.
And so I was kind of thinking, you know, just noodling through that and just thinking about it. And it may be very distinct to kind of where I was coming from and where I am right now, and these 3 jurisdictions that we're trying to, if we.
Dang, you froze up on me. Dang, that last part, you froze up on me. But yeah, I feel that at Village, you know, Village could have well, okay, so like, in community is a word like you know, there's that book about imagine communities, right? How some people imagine communities as being geographic, some imagine communities as being part of identity, right? So with Village, like oftentimes Village does have a geographical part to it, but I'm not sure if it has to, you know what I mean? But as we see it right now, I do see that, but that could be a strength, right? So if you have 3 different, you know, communities that are all like part of your trade area, then maybe having this new language would be about like how these 3 are actually together. You know what I mean? Like that is our community. You know what I mean? Like these 3 areas, right? So shifting the language, you know what I mean? So that to create a space where everybody feels welcome and valued and a part of that conversation, you know? Okay, thanks. Is there any more questions?
Peggy, it looks like you wanted to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so hi everyone. So when you are making phone calls to members and you have 2,500 members, and I'm thinking that some of the responses to how are you doing and what do you need are varied. So do you have kind of some task force or different groups that are like, we can take food to the elders, or we have this resource that we're helping? So how are you meeting the needs when people have them?
Yeah, that's a real good question. How's it going, Peggy? Yeah, I think, okay, so I think to really understand how we're doing it in Dayton is that like, there's different pieces of the ecosystem that are all working together, right? So yeah, so as the market, we're making calls, right? But we also like, our market is part of a co-op incubator, right? Called Co-op Dayton. And we're in the process of developing a delivery co-op right now called Dayton Delivers, right? So part of the thing is how to connect these together. So we're gathering information to find out what are the experiences and what are the constant experiences, you know, not just the one-off, but like things I'm hearing a lot, right? And then how do we either organize resources or connect resources to that, right? So like we're delivering food right now. We're delivering school supplies right now. And we're still in the process of hearing what people are experiencing and connecting them to us. So like within the ecosystem, right, there's a whole, there's a food bank, there's all kinds of people that are meeting these needs, right? So like, how do we increase the collaboration? And one of the things I think that we come in as a strength is that, you know, I think we have a pretty good pulse on what's happening in the community, and some organizations might not have that same reach, right? So how do we connect those who have the resources with those that have, you know, that are situated in certain experiences right now that can utilize these resources, right? Because part of our goal as a market is to bring the voice of the marginalized into the center of public policy and into the center of conversations, you know what I mean? So like, how do we lift up the voices of those that aren't being heard as much, right? And then how to organize resources around what those people what people are experiencing, you know? So yeah, so it's all kind of emerging right now, you know what I mean? So I think part of it is like, how do we build the strength of our collaboration as an ecosystem, right? Like, you know, like these people are doing this, but like, how's it connect to this, right? Like helping identify the gaps, you know what I mean? And like even today, there's a public housing complex, and there's like 3 or 4 people that are doing different work together. So like now we're having a conversation, okay, like how can we all work together, right? So that like we're sharing information, you know, like we're working on making sure people are, you know, getting their tax, the $1,200, and you know what I mean? Like we created this thing for that, you know what I mean? So we're trying to see like what we can do to build the capacity locally to address now, right? So yeah, great question, Peggy. What are you guys doing? I know y'all doing great work up there. So what y'all doing in D-Town?
Well, I mean, again, there hasn't really been a lot of activity around the food co-op. Right now, we're, you know, there's a lot of different people that are in the co-op that are in different groups and doing work. So and they all overlap and intersect in different ways. But specifically, the co-op itself is like, we're not, you know, reaching out to members, which I really want to do after this call. I want to call some folks and make sure that we are calling everybody and just checking in.
Right. And I appreciate that. But I think you brought up a good point, right? Is that there's people part of the co-op, right, that are out there doing the work. So to me, that means the ecosystem's already doing it, right? So how can the co-op be the convener and the space to help have the conversations and the dialogue, right, of like how to increase our capacity and leverage the gifts and talents of what people are already doing. You know what I mean? So it's like to me, I'm like, if anybody's doing work in the area that's like for the community, I don't have to know you, but I'm a part of your work. You know what I mean? Cause that's how I'm in on this. You know what I mean? It's like, look, like I will send resource, I will send people. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, cause this is, you know, a people's movement, right? So yeah.
Katie, did you want to share your thoughts? You were saying that they're struggling to get owners to give time. That they don't necessarily have the credibility within their community despite a lot of connections with groups to get people to do that. So they're just kind of, I think, do you want to talk about that for a minute with Amaha?
We're just, we're up to about 300 owners now, but I'm on the lead on the outreach. And as soon as this thing hit, I was on it. I was connecting with owners and saying, okay, this is all the things we can do. Let's get together as a group. Let's do blah, blah, blah. And the rest of the board has really been on it. We, you know, via social media, we're doing a call bank also.
Good, thanks.
And just getting people to join in and to collaborate and to work just within our ownership has just been like headbutting. And our community is we are in connection with a lot of groups within the community, you know, with food gardens and with West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. Shh, let me talk, sweetheart. and just multiple groups within the community, and it's just hard to gain any credibility or to get in to get groups, you know, working with us to get this co-op open and running.
Right. Yeah, I feel that, and I think you know, it's a dance, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, you know, or even like double dutch, you know what I mean? Where you're trying to find your rhythm and like, you know what I mean? And so, right. So, so to me, so you got to know who you are, right? And know what you're doing. And if there's people already moving in the flow and moving, you know, acting in this moment and trying to help the community, then like join their efforts. You know what I mean? It's like you don't necessarily have to be the spearhead, right? Like you utilize the moment of right now, because what you want to come out of this with the community knowing that, yeah, in the middle of the crisis, what's the name of your co-op?
Grand Rapids Food Co-op.
Grand Rapids Food Co-op was right there with us, right? We were walking together. You know what I mean? Because to keep it real, we're going to come out of this season, or, you know, into this next paradigm, or however you want to call it. And people are going to look like, but where were you during this? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that like our value is based upon work, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm spending a lot of time just working on myself right now and this, that, and other, you know what I mean? So it's not about that at all, right? But at the same time, like the more that we can show that we are for the community in this hour, you know, then people coming out, they'll identify with us. You know what I mean? So one thing that we're doing in our market when it's fully up, we're gonna have a teaching kitchen, we're gonna have a health clinic, and we're gonna have a community room. You know what I mean? And all of those are the goals of like, how do we be like that watering hole and hub where people see us as like a place to have meetings, to organize and to strategize and to think about what is the community we want to see. You know what I mean? So, so I think it's like how to connect with the work that's already happening. You know what I mean? And being in there helps build your ecosystem, right? You know what I mean? So like, you know, like to me, it's almost easier to move something that's already, like, you know, they say that it's easier to turn a car that's already moving. You know what I mean? So like if you see work happening that resonates, you know what I mean? Like join with it. You know what I mean? Like and it'll all emerge, you know, over time.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, you jumped in and asked, was asking Amaha, and you want to unmute and ask this yourself, or Amaha? She was wondering if you're getting support from city and county leaders in the efforts you're leading right now, the co-op's trying to do, and how that's going, or if they're just kind of sitting back.
I think countywide and local, everybody's still trying to figure it out. And yeah, we've had support through the whole process, and that hasn't changed. Directly, as far as like what we're doing right now, I would say kinda, as far as, you know, we're exploring. So some cooks have come together and they've created like this organization that like they're cooking meals that you can put in your freezer and then, you know, like pull out, so you have some higher quality meals that like you can just pull out your freezer. And so like, so that's like a county effort that, you know, that we're kind of developing a relationship with, of like how we can like help distribute those out. Like, you know, the cooks are making it, but they don't have the delivery capacity. So we're working on to develop our delivery capacity that we could like help distribute that out. So yeah, so we're definitely, you know, we're definitely all in cooperation. I mean, I'm sure there's more we could do to cooperate together, but you know, it's still evolving. I think, you know, I think everybody's trying to kind of find their rhythm. You know what I mean? It takes a little time to get there.
Well, and that was part of the reason I asked, because we're very fortunate that we have support from the town of Amherst supervisor, Erie County Executive Mark Polencars. We were able to secure funding through the IDA for both the county and the town to get our feasibility study done like almost 2 years ago.
Got you.
So,
got you.
Yeah, and then I'm in Western New York. Sometimes it's still kind of provincial in Western New York. So we're still spending a lot of time explaining what a co-op is. And we have one of the older ones, Lexington, down in the city, that's been around for 45 years. But it takes a lot of education and outreach to say, this is what a cooperative is. And we're lucky our board president works for USDA and the rural development stuff. But people will go, oh, is that the thing where your farmers grow the crops and you go and pick up the bag of food? And we're like, no, that's a CSA that, so you do have to spend a lot of time educating the public. So they become more comfortable and they're not so scared because it feels weird.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of misunderstood your question. So yeah, like overall, we've had amazing support from our city and county, like before the pandemic. I thought you meant right now in the middle of the pandemic, but yeah, like we got some of our initial like seed money came from city and county. We just got I want to say 100,000 more recently towards construction. So yeah, we've definitely been developing that because part of like Dayton is unique in that we was a big GM town, and when GM crumbled, it forced us into the space of like, okay, reimagining who are we as Dayton, right? And so within this, we're developing this notion of a solidarity economy. You know what I mean? So like how do we build a different economy locally? You know what I mean? So so we've been getting a lot of support from city and county and kind of reimagining what that can look like. Yeah, for sure.
Let me ask you a question, not to put you on the spot, but like Buffalo, Dayton to me has an east side of town and a west side of town. Is it still the case? Because we still are, like, our east side folks are hurting for grocery stores. And I worked a couple years ago with some ladies, UB School of Architecture and Planning. We had the Champions for Change. So they were trying to set up like a grocery store and sort of like a trailer type. So are you finding that's still kind of a challenge that you got this side of town versus that side of town?
Right. Yeah. Well, like you didn't put me on the spot about that, because actually our co-op was founded off of that notion, right? Because we have the east side and the west side of Dayton. West side is 98% African-American. East side is about 94% white with, Turkish, Hispanic, and African refugees. But when these maps came out that measured access to opportunity in Dayton, we saw that access to opportunity was distributed by the river, right? And almost all of West Side Dayton had low and very low opportunity. So the co-op emerged out of a meeting we held in I think it was 2015, 2016, when we talked to the community about the disparity in access to opportunity, right? Which overlays the redlining maps. So anywhere in the country, you have a redlining map, I guarantee you're gonna see the low and very low opportunity in those areas, right? Because the disinvestment has now translated into that, which is why I said in the beginning that you call it food apartheid, because food apartheid is the result, right, of the redlining policies. You know what I mean? So we got to connect the dots so people see how it came to be. So yeah, so that's definitely an issue. And so out of that initial meeting, we had five ideas of like different areas that we could work on. And one idea was, looking at food, and we had about 4 or 5 people, and then kind of the work kind of emerged out of there that ended up being the co-op. Like at the time, we didn't know it was going to be a grocery store. We didn't know it was going to be a co-op, right? But that journey started out of looking at the opportunity maps. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely still an issue. And I think when we're looking at the pathway of the virus is following the same pathway of the redlining maps, right? So like there's a structural issue that we have to talk about, right? Because when we're talking about structure equals ideology plus resources, right? It was an imagination of what race means, right? That has created a lot of these structures that we're still like, we need to undo right now or reimagine, you know what I mean? So like the African-American community for a long time has been operating off of a white imagination of what it means to be Black, right? As far as that, oh, you're not human, you can disinvest your areas, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, I think it's like race is a social construct, you know what I mean? That we're all human beings, you know what I mean? And how do we build our society on that foundation? Not that you have to be a white, male, rich landowner, right? Because that was the initial tenets, right, of how society was constructed. So I know you didn't ask for all that, but, but yeah, I apologize. I told you I'm random. So
I was going to ask you, so Amaha, you mentioned a nice dichotomy that I think is really important. I want to make sure people heard, which is like, know who you are, know where you're at. Like, is your co-op ready to step up and kind of be a centralizing hub and lead? If not, that doesn't mean you sit back. Then you jump in and figure out who's doing good work and make sure your co-op's present with that. Nikki, I know this is something your co-op also thought through really early on. I thought maybe you just share a little bit about what Little Africa has been working on with Amaha and see if that enriches the conversation.
Sure. You know, that's our mentoring cooperative. So,
what up?
Hey, boy.
We learning from each other, right?
Ohio.
So, yeah,
right. H10.
Hey.
So one of the things that we have learned is we take the opportunity and we turn it into what is necessary for us. We have given up a lot to everybody else. Now it's time for us to take that back. So what Amaha is speaking on is that we have given them, right? We have we paid our taxes, we paid our dues, we done went to your jobs, we done fed your kids, we done did all of that. Now it's time for us to do this on our own, right? Now, when we talk about that whole village concept, right? We talk about the community, but when you go to the community centers, what is the community centers doing? They just there, right? You have to go to the people. You have to meet the people where they are. And with Dayton and with Cleveland, Little Africa Food Cooperative, we meeting the people where they are. If our people cannot get to the places, what good is the places sitting there with a brick and mortar and they can't get to them? So what's the whole point of even building a brick and mortar? So I'd rather get in the car and go talk to my people, go deliver the food to them, and then now you can do your own feasibility study, right? Because you talking to the people, you getting the numbers. Now you see exactly what it is that you can offer them. Now you can get the breakdown of the people in the community, because now you got one-on-one. You know, it'd be a great thing if each one of us cooperatives get some of that money that Western Reserve just got, okay, from the CARES Act. They need deliverers. So it would be great if we all came together, put a strategy together on how we as a cooperative community will service so we can all get paid. See, we're not getting the money because we're not these big corporations. So let's go to these big corporations and tell them how we want their money and how we can service our community with their money. That is what we are doing. And that is what Dayton is good at doing. Okay.
y'all good too, right? You know what I mean? Like you know, I love the relationship that we're building in Ohio. You know what I mean? And I talked to Toledo yesterday, and they're looking to build a co-op. You know what I mean? And I told them about you, Jacqueline, so they're going to be reaching out to you. So yeah, I think part of our core competency, right, of co-ops is that we are embedded inside the community. You know what I mean? So like that is a core competency that we have, you know what I mean, that can be leveraged for get out to vote, right? It can be leveraged for a lot of things, you know what I mean?
2020 census, all of that, right?
The census, exactly.
Village.
Exactly.
But see, that is the power of the village.
Right.
That's not the power of the community. That's the power of the village. You know, it was like, if I did something wrong, I got in trouble 3 times because I had to pass 3 elders going down the street, right? So I'm gonna get it 3 times. So Miss Johnson gonna give it to me, Miss White gonna give it to me, and Miss Tatum gonna give it to me, right?
Come on now.
So we forgot about that village concept. We all take care of each other. See, now everybody is just living in a little humble abode. Oh, I'm here. This is my home. I'm going to stay over here. You stay over there. No, in a cooperative, we all matter. right? We all have to go out and we all have to take care of each other.
Right.
So we are in a better position than anybody right now. So I'm going to get into that come Thursday. I don't want to give you all of me, y'all.
Right?
Now we looking forward to it. That's real. You know, and I think you bring up a good point, Mickey. So part of it's about how do we expand the we? You know what I mean? So it's like how we keep expanding the circle of the we. You know what I mean? So that we're not othering. You know what I mean? And so like how are we building the space to harbinger or like build this village, right? You know what I mean? And to be a part of it, because food is the easiest way to organize a community. You know what I mean? So like one of the things that helped Dayton in building the co-op was that at the time, you know, Dayton was second in the nation when it came to food insecurity. You know what I mean? And so when our community heard this, they responded. Like they didn't just sit back, you know what I mean? So like once we communicated what our actual, we had 40,000 people on the west side of Dayton and no full service grocery store. I mean, seriously, even like our only full service grocery store was outside the city limits. It's right on the borderline. So we grafted in, but technically we had no grocery store for 40,000 residents on the west side of Dayton. You know what I mean? So, our community responded, you know what I mean, on all type of levels, right? Once the information was out there, right? So I think part of it is building a health case. And also part of it is educating, especially if you're inside of a food desert, like educating like what that means. You know what I mean? Having to take 2 buses to get groceries that, you know, you got to navigate 3 hours of time just to get some food. And if you got a big family, how many trips do you have to make, or how many people do you have to bring with you, right? And it's exasperated in this crisis. So now, like, you know, do you ride the bus during this pandemic and put your family at risk on the bus? Or, you know, so like all these things come out, right? You know what I mean? And so like, how are we coming out of this, building more capacity to really move our community forward and in a way that supports everyone, you know?
You talked about building trust, and I think that's something some of the startups, I think at the root, are saying that they're struggling with. Do you mind giving us a few words on like how you guys have built that trust and what that's taken?
Sure. I think trust came over time, for sure, right? So even, so Erica Bruton was one of our first people that like was able to spend quality time organizing specifically for the market. And she helped put some key people in. But when we were first starting, I remember like, people were like, oh, they're gonna take, especially, okay, let me pull it back. Like a lot of projects happen in our community, or well, they say they're gonna happen, right? And people get all excited, and some people even put resources towards it, and then nothing ever happens, right? So we had to face that obstacle that like we're standing on shoulders of some projects that have succeeded and some projects that hasn't succeeded. So people take the, you know, I'm gonna sit back and wait, you know, approach, which I get, you know what I mean? So I think it took some time to build the relationships and to talk to people. To we increased our, we are very highly participatory, right? So the name of the market was community. The community named it. Like we had a whole process of like naming the market. We when we did our mission statement, I remember we had about 150, 200 people, like all in all these different rooms, and we did a collective creating a mission statement process, right? So throughout the process, we had high participation, and what that does, that it not only it builds trust, but it shifts people from being members to being owners and leaders, right? Because we want a leader-full organization, you know what I mean? Like we're not like a top-down thing, like we're highly distributive with power, you know what I mean? Because we want everybody to be able to act from where they are and to co-create the space together. So I think all those things help build trust. And another part is, you know, it took time. So I initially stepped off of, so we built the incubator first, and then I jumped off that to be the president for the market, because, you know, I have been doing community work in the community, you know, for a little bit of time before that. And so I was counting on a little bit of trust that I had generated in the community over years to try to help it forward, but there was resistance. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? But I think like in the midst of resistance, we got to keep moving forward. It's like, look, like, you know, I don't want to get biblical, but Nehemiah, you know what I mean? He had his sword and he had his building the wall at the same time. You know what I mean? So it's like, we kept our eye on the prize and we kept building. And the more people saw the fruit of it, and the more people started to believe. And now at our groundbreaking, you could feel the hope in the community, because this community, we haven't had anything like major in our community in like 20 years probably. I mean, it's been a long time, right? But people now believe, and not and the key is, and this is what collective hope is about. They don't believe in the market. They believe in their own capacity, right, to do other things. You know what I mean? It's like this is a small example of what we can do together as a community. You know what I mean? This is the biggest project I've ever worked on, but in the context of community redevelopment, it's a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? But what it is it was big enough to stretch us, right? And to let us know, yeah, we could do this. You know, we started out of nothing and we're here now. And so what we can do more. So I think trust also generates as people see it moving and see how like we can pull together our resources to transform our community.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I wanted to talk about that. I want specifically, Gem City has done an exemplary job of showing how it can be participatory and be collective while still having a leadership team that moves forward. And I think startups struggle with one or the other. Either it gets super participatory and it gets kind of bogged down, or it gets super leadership driven because it feels like no one else wants to do the work. And suddenly people are going, well, when's the store going to open? Because they think you're going to go do this thing. They don't think it's us. And I think Gem City's just done an amazing job of walking that line. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, no problem. And I think the other thing, like, now I'm thinking about trust. The other thing too about trust, and I'm sure everybody on this call has experienced this, is that, you know, you start any project, right? And then 3 or 4 months later, okay, you know, your first meeting, right? And right away, everybody, okay, I'm gonna be the president, right? You know, you break up into all these roles right off the rip, right? And then 3 or 4 months later, right, the thing dissipates, you know what I mean? And then someone like a month or two later will try to regenerate the energy and pull everybody back, right? And the reason was that we were transactional instead of relational. So part of us building trust is that like we build deep relationships with the community. Like when we knock on doors, like, you know, like when people go out for voting stuff and like, you know, hit 50 doors an hour or whatever, you know what I mean? Like for us, if you hit one door and had a great conversation, that is a win. You know what I mean? Like we build deep relationships with the community. And part of building trust with the community is developing that shared vision that we can see it, taste it, smell it. Because when obstacles come, when delays come, when roadblocks come, when people try to break you up, it's the strength of your connection to the vision that enables you to move forward in the midst of adversity, right? And so like that's how you build the trust, is building that shared vision together, right? And it takes time.
There was something, Kim, you had a lot to say. I'm reading it, I'm nodding along. Do you want to share any of this out loud with Amaha before we wrap up today?
Yeah, come on, Kim.
I know you can read it, so I won't read it to you. I will just say that the whole idea of food co-ops being in front of recognizing sort of an underserved community in all of its needs, whether it be health or education or access to transportation and many, many others,
right,
really critical. And I did environmental disparities and environmental equity, like, you know, in the 80s. I did a lot of things in the 80s. And in that space, though, you know, that was kind of one space, and then food was another space, transportation was yet another space. And I've worked in all of these, and they're rarely linked, and they're very essential. If you can't access a school, and you can't access a grocery store, you can't access a good job, you can't access your health care, you know, and that's really where this pandemic has brought us. It's brought us to these very communities that we are all serving that are under-resourced.
Right.
And the most impact of that pandemic.
Right.
I say that this pandemic.
Right. Kim, I would love to continue this conversation with you, right? And I think you just hit the key, which we didn't talk about at all today, and I apologize, is that like we rooted all of our work inside the social determinants of health, right? Because that includes all the things that you mentioned, right? So like the co-op is one part of a larger health equity strategy, right? Based on social determinants of health, or really looking at the structural determinants of health, because the structural determinants is how resources are being distributed that then result in the social determinants of health, right? So you go deeper and look, okay, how are these things being organized, right? So that we operate all these spaces, and the co-op is situated as one part of this larger like community redevelopment, looking at all the determinants of health, right? That directly impact the well-being of our community. You know what I mean? So yeah, for sure. So co-ops can be a key in that, having that conversation, you know?
Yeah. So and just, you know, it's also just key to know that it's not about food stamps. It's about what co-ops do, which is bring the food in the community.
And
so anyway, I see Jacqueline's ready to roll, and I apologize. Thanks.
No, I don't let you apologize. I called on you for a reason. So I just want us to lose our opportunity before I lose all of you. Two things. One, to thank Amaha, what we're gonna do in a second. And two, to make sure you know about all the other great sessions coming this week, because there's some stuff you do not want to miss. But first, I just want to thank Amaha. This has been terrific. We're looking forward to the session. I'm sure everybody, lots of appreciation if you want to read those chat. We really appreciate you being here with us today. Want to make sure you guys know that we did record this, so you can share what Amaha said with the rest of your board. So we'll send that out via email today. And upcoming, Mickey shared just a little taste today, but she's doing a whole session called Creating Community Response on Thursday. She ran an amazing process to get input from her community early. Man, they saw this thing coming early. And started and basically took that leadership role, helped the co-op, help coalesce a response. And there's a beautiful document that came out of it that she's going to let us share as well after the session. So don't miss that. And then Friday, we're going to have Shoni Black and Ed Whitfield here for Fund for Democratic Communities, who are behind Renaissance Food Co-op effort. They're going to be here to talk about mutual aid and organizing. You're going to see kind of the theme going on right now. We're talking a lot this week about organizing and community organizing, because some startups are rich and deep in this work, and some of us, I think, don't realize what we're doing is 50% community organizing and 50% building a business. And so we wanted to take this topic deep, and these speakers agreed to come and share with us. And then Tuesday, we switch again. This is going to be an opportunity to be inspired by what an established co-op is doing. Seward Food Co-op, Ray Williams, who's their operation manager and full disclosure on the board of Food Co-op Initiative, he's going to be here sharing how Seward responded when COVID-19 started, what worked, what didn't, what they learned, how they've pivoted to better serve their community in the middle of it. And they've been very, very transparent with their community throughout. So it'll be just terrific to hear from him about what has worked and not worked. But any last thoughts you wanted to share, Amaha, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing the space, you know what I mean? Because like I think the collective conversation has made the space what it was, you know what I mean? So I appreciate everybody's input, you know what I mean? We just vibing off each other, and you know, continue the great work. And I look forward to building, you know what I mean? So reach out, or I'm gonna reach out, and we can just continue the conversation, right?
Excellent. Thank you, Amaha, again. Thank you, everybody, for being here and creating the space, as he said. And we hope to see you on Thursday. Have a great one, guys.
All right, thanks. See ya. Take care.